One of my biggest fears when I started wholesaling real estate was that someone would go behind my back and steal one of my deals, and that's exactly what happened. And this was a deal that I worked hard for, and at that point would have been the biggest wholesale check that I had in my business since I got started. I've got all the details coming up for you, and to help soothe the pain I feel talking about this, all I ask is that you turn that like button blue. What's up, everybody? If you're new here, my name is Lili, and this channel is where I document my real estate investing journey and bring you guys with me. If you have been to the channel before, you see that we've got a new studio and filming setup, and I hope you love it as much as I do. I started posting on this channel consistently in June of 2020, and I've always shared the ups and the downs with you guys, and this video is more of the same. It was definitely a down moment for me to have a deal stolen by another wholesaler, but as I reflect back on 2020 and plan for 2021, I'm hoping that I can turn that negative into a bit of a positive by sharing with you guys why it happened and what I learned. And if you are watching this in 2020, on December 28th, I've got a free Zoom wholesaling kickoff event that I would love to invite you to. I'm gonna help you plan to build your business in 2021, and I'm also able to give out 2 free annual subscriptions to PropStream, so definitely sign up. It's all free. The link is in the description. So again, I would appreciate it if you turn that like button blue and strap in as I tell you this story and give you this free game. So first off, how did I find this deal? If you've been to the channel before, you know that I usually try to target on-market distressed properties rather than looking off-market, meaning I do very little of things like driving for dollars, cold calling, or sending postcards, but instead I work with real estate agents to get my deals. I've talked about my reasons why in this video, but I'm gonna be doing a deep dive that goes into on-market versus off-market and the pros and cons of each, so be sure to turn on notifications because that will be coming out soon. It was actually a different on-market property that I was going to see when I found this one. That first house, I went to see it with my brother. I thought that I wanted to make an offer on it, but once we got in there, and I mean, of course we had masks on, but the masks were doing nothing for the smell in that house.
Why does it smell so bad?
It was really bad and there were flies everywhere, so I'm gonna just let you do the math on what was going on in that house. We walked through as quickly as we could, and on the way out, we actually drove by a house that had a for sale by owner sign in the front yard. Initially, I took down the address and the number on that sign because I thought I would figure out what that property was selling for and then consider it as a comp for the other property that I had just left, but then I realized, let me just call this homeowner and see if they're interested in a cash sale. And after talking to that owner, I got really excited because I knew this would be my first opportunity for a creative financing deal. Before I tell you how I put the deal together, let me tell you the owner's situation and let's see if you come to the same conclusion that I did. So he wanted $78,000 for the house, and when I asked him what type of condition was in, he said like new. He explained that he had just purchased it less than a year ago when he first moved to this area, and when he purchased it, everything had just been remodeled. So that included new floors, new paint, new appliances, new roof, etc., etc. It wasn't a high-end rehab, but it was definitely a nice updated home. He also mentioned that he was looking to sell the house as quickly as possible, and when I asked him why, he said because he was homesick and he wanted to move back home and be closer to his family. With that information, is there anything you're thinking so far? Okay, I'm gonna keep going, tell you a little bit more, and then I'll tell you what I did. When I asked him why he wanted to sell for $78,000 specifically, he said that he still owed about $75,000 on the mortgage from when he had purchased it less than a year ago, and he wanted to use the $3,000 or so in profit to help with his moving expenses. Also, to tell you a little bit about the neighborhood, the comps in the area were selling for about $70,000 to $80,000 depending how nice they were, so his $78,000 asking price fit pretty well in there. So what do you think? After getting all of this information, I realized that an actual cash offer wouldn't work for this property, and I needed to put together a subject to deal. Why? Well, first, because he'd purchased the property less than a year ago, he had basically no equity on his loan because most of his first year of payments, those payments were just going towards the interest on the loan and not the principal. And by the way, if a seller isn't this forthcoming and telling you how much their mortgage loan is, you can actually use PropStream to see those details. So I have a link to that 7-day free trial of PropStream for you. If you're looking at a property and you want to know how much is left on the mortgage, PropStream is really, really useful for that. Second, Even though he didn't have much equity, having the house at $78,000 was a good price for a retail buyer, but I knew my cash buyers were looking for deals at a 15 to even 30% discount before taking into account the rehab. So even though the house was in really good condition, my buyers were still gonna need to pick it up for around $60,000, and obviously the seller couldn't accept that because he owed $75,000. So that's how I got onto the subject to path. And if you're not sure what sub 2 is, it's a creative financing strategy which allows an investor, rather than making a cash purchase on the property, to instead buy the property subject to the existing mortgage, which just means that they'll take over the mortgage payments on behalf of the original homeowner. The investor will make those mortgage payments for them. In this case, the seller did not want to deal with the real estate agent, which was why he was selling it for sale by owner, and he wanted to sell it really quickly so he could go home but not still have to worry about paying this mortgage off. And so subject 2 worked really well for him. If you guys want me to make more videos about subject 2 and other creative financing strategies, put the most creative emoji you can find in the comments. So once he understood what subject 2 was and agreed with me that it would work for his situation pretty well, we talked about the terms. I told him that my partners and I would give him $6,000 cash to help with the move. We would close as quickly as possible, and anything that he didn't want to take with him or take to the dump, he could just leave it in the house and we would take care of it after he was gone. He agreed, we signed the contract, and for everyone that's planning to put this in the comments, I filed a memorandum with my county clerk just to let them know that I had an off-market deal under contract. If you're not sure what an affidavit of memorandum is, it's basically a document that lets your county know that you have an off-market real estate contract signed, and it prevents that property from being sold to anyone else while you have the deal under contract. Now, in my situation, this memorandum didn't work for 2 reasons, and I'm going to explain both reasons in detail for you guys, but let's keep going with the story so that you understand everything that's going on. So once the contract was signed and the memorandum was filed, I sent the deal out to my cash buyer. Because this was a subject to mortgage takeover deal, the buyers didn't need to have a ton of cash to actually get in on this property. All they needed was the $6,000 to give to the seller for his moving expenses and the assignment fee that I was asking for, which was $10,000. So for $16K, the buyer could take over the mortgage, which was only about $800 a month, and they could put a renter in the property and start to cash flow immediately. I got a lot of interest in this deal, and I was excited because people always say, you know, build your cash buyers list. The bigger your buyers list, the more people you can send your deals out to, and the better chance you'll have of getting someone to take the deal for you. And things went really well. I set up a time for the homeowner to leave the property so that myself and my partners could walk through, and I had about 6 people come see the property, and 4 of them made me offers. I had 2 offers for $5,000, 1 offer for $8,000, and another offer for $8,500. Of course, I took the one that was $8,500. I wrote up the assignment contract that would give him the rights to my original subject to contract, and we planned to meet that afternoon where I would give him the contract and he would give me my assignment check, and then I would just stay involved to help him communicate with the seller about all the details of when the seller was going to move out, how they were going to handle the mortgage takeover, etc., etc. And then it all fell apart. Just a few hours before I was gonna meet up with my buyer, the homeowner called me and said that a guy had called him, I won't say the guy's name here, but a guy had called him and told him he would give him $10,000 for the subject to deal instead of the $6,000 that I was offering. Therefore, he wanted out of our contract. I was immediately furious because I knew the guy who he was talking about. He was actually on my buyer's list, and while he wasn't one of the people that came to see the house, he was someone that I emailed the deal to. I told the seller that he had agreed to our contract terms and he signed a legally binding contract, and of course we went back and forth over that for a little while. The conversation basically ended with the seller saying he didn't care what he had signed, he was gonna do the deal with this guy who was offering him $10K, and that was basically it. So once he hung up, I called my cash buyer who was gonna give me the $8,500, and I asked him what he thought I should do. And here's why it's always better, if you can, to get real life advice from someone who can get all of the details of your situation and give you an answer that they have experience in, rather than just depending on, you know, some random person who doesn't understand what's going on. So I recommend that you guys build rapport with your buyers. I never pretend to be an expert, and what that opens me up to do is to ask questions to my buyers and try to get advice for when I'm in an unfamiliar situation. The first thing my buyer explained was that the guy who was trying to steal my deal was actually a wholesaler with a bad reputation for pretending to be a cash buyer. He would get on people's buyers lists, and when he saw an opportunity, try to steal deals when he was able to. This is actually the first lesson that I learned from this whole ordeal, and it's that having more buyers is not always better. I rather have a much smaller list of buyers who I know, who I trust, who have integrity and want to do repeat deals with me, and therefore aren't gonna be shady and do things under the table, versus having a huge buyers list where I'm sending out information to hundreds of people and I really don't even know who they are. Now I have a relationship with 10 buyers who I've built relationships with, who I trust, and who want me to bring them repeat deals, and so they're much less likely to ruin our relationship by stealing a deal from me. And if you're worried about not having enough buyers for your deal, I would say try to shift your focus to getting a great deal rather than worrying about the buyers, because like they say, if you build it, they will come. In this case, if you have a great deal, the buyers will buy it. The next thing my buyer explained to me was that with a subject to deal, there's two components of ownership. There's the actual mortgage payment to the bank and the deed to the home. The mortgage is gonna stay in the homeowner's name because that's the whole point of the subject to deal. Rather than purchasing it cash or getting another loan to buy the property, the investor is just gonna take over the mortgage payments on behalf of the owner. He then explained that other than the mortgage, there's the actual ownership or deed of the house, and for that part of the deal, he could have two options. He could actually have the title company transfer the ownership into his name, leaving the mortgage in the homeowner's name, or you can just allow both of them to stay in the homeowner's name. This was important for me to learn and for you to know because it's the reason that my memorandum didn't help me in this situation. The memorandum protects the home from being sold, but because this is a subject to deal, the thieving wholesaler didn't actually need to buy the property. He could just keep the mortgage and the deed in the homeowner's name and handle all of the transaction, like giving the homeowner cash, just between the two parties, never even involving the title company, and therefore rendering my memorandum obsolete. Now, I did still have the signed contract with the homeowner saying that I had the exclusive right to do this deal with him, but if I wanted to try to enforce that contract, it would have meant taking the homeowner to court. And going down that path became a question of how much time and energy did I want to dedicate to this deal, especially knowing that in the meantime, while we were duking it out in court, this homeowner was just going to accept $10K from that other wholesaler and move back to his hometown. So did I want to spend weeks, maybe months dealing with this, hire a lawyer, do all of this back and forth, when in actuality, I knew that the wholesaler was going to do the deal, assign it to someone else, and even if I won the court case, was I going to go find that wholesaler's buyer and tell them, hey, actually, I have the right to do this deal when they're already paying the mortgage payments and the original homeowner's already gone out of the picture? Now, I was excited to get that $8,500 check, but it wasn't worth all of that for me, and I knew that my time and my energy would be better placed in just going out and getting more deals. So what can you take from my experience? First off, fire an affidavit of memorandum if you'd like. But from my experience thus far, it seems like with creative financing deals, if the title of the property is not actually going to change names, it might not protect you. Second, build a buyer's list of people that you trust. More isn't always better. Get on the phone with potential buyers and do your best to build up some rapport and see what's going on in their business and are they actually going to do deals with you with integrity. Something I teach in my 5-day beginners bootcamp is how you can find the best, most serious cash buyers in your area and stop dealing with shady wholesalers and buyers. And finally, be willing to learn. I missed out on $8,500, but hopefully the lessons I learned about creative financing, managing buyers, and just putting my time and energy into the right places, hopefully that will make me back $8,500 and more. And as a PS, one of the reasons that I like wholesaling on-market properties is because when there's a real estate agent involved, it lowers the chances drastically that that homeowner is gonna back out of the deal and try to sell to someone else. If you're interested in learning more about my on-market wholesaling strategy, definitely sign up for that free 2021 wholesaling kickoff event that I'm hosting on Zoom. It's gonna be happening Monday, December 28th at 7 p.m. Central. All details and signups are in the description below, and by signing up, you're automatically entered into that giveaway to get one of 2 free annual memberships to PropStream. And if you want an extra entry, just snap a picture of this video, post it to your Instagram story, and tag me, and I'll give you an extra entry. I'm at Lili Invest on Instagram, and I look forward to seeing you on Zoom. All details are in the link in the description, and I'll catch you on the next video.